Okay, we are holding on page Tzadi Hey. We said last time that the second part of Chasidus is not what's being done, but how it's being done. That's what we discussed. How, the Oifen HaAsiyah, how it's being done. And the Ramchal told us that the way things are done in Avodas Hashem, when they're done b'shleimus, is when two separate midos are working together, and those two midos are Yira and Ava. And now we're up to the second paragraph where it says Hine Ikar HaYira, where he starts to describe Yira. And every sentence or two here is something to stop and to consider. There's a lot here. Hine Ikar HaYira Hi Yiras HaRoimimus. The Ikar Yira is Yiras HaRoimimus. Now this is very interesting. There are different levels of Yiras Shamayim. And the lowest, most basic level is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us that if we do the wrong thing, He's going to punish us. And if we don't want to be punished, we have to do the right thing. And in a way, that was a tremendous favor that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did that for us, because those wrong things are very damaging for us. So just like a parent may tell a child that there are consequences to running in the street or to eating something that's unhealthy for them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us that He's going to punish us for the bad things that we do. Is going to reveal to us how bad they are. In other words, the fact that they have bad effects, that's because they're Averos. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals those bad effects, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's tova to us. You know, if you're drinking poison and it tastes sweet and delicious, it may be harder to avoid drinking the poison. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, there's going to be punishment. So that's Yiras Shamayim. That Yira is what the Rambam describes as the Yira that's shaykh to a lower level of sophistication in Avodas Hashem. That's not a sophisticated level in Avodas Hashem. The sophisticated level of Yira, which the Rambam also talks about, is an awe from the greatness of Hashem. Is a sense of reverence and awe from the greatness of Hashem. A little bit like what we discussed last time, that just contemplating Hashem's greatness makes me take a step back. I feel a little bit inhibited, a little shy, a little held back when I'm in the presence of such greatness. That's Yiras HaRoimimus. Shetzarech ha'adam lachshav ba'odei mispala le'oisa mitzvah. A person should think while he's davening or while he's doing a mitzvah, ki lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hu mispala le'oisa ha'maisa ha'u. That he's davening in front of the King of Kings and doing this maisa in front of the King of Kings. And I want to make a warning to all of us here when we learn this Mesilas Yesharim. The problem with these words is the problem that the Mesilas Yesharim discussed in his Hakdama. We are numb. Do you feel the numbness? When you daven, you're in front of the Melech Malchei Hamlachim. Yeah? You knew that? Yeah? We're numb. And that numbness makes us not aware of a foul. I'll give you a mashal that occurred to me this morning while I was driving. I got on the road to drop late. So I was driving like someone who gets on the road to drop late. I won't go into details. Okay? And at a certain point, I just missed the truck. Okay, I don't think I was bisakana. I've been driving for 35 years, I know how to drive. But it was a little dicey there for a second. And I was thinking that I think I'm becoming numb a little bit to driving because I drive so much. And I'm forgetting, and it's important to remember this when you're on the road, that a good drive is a good drive. Not a good drive could kill you. We don't think about that. We're just enjoying the road, but that contact is a little contact. That's it. Even if everyone is safe afterwards, it's a headache for months, right? Insurance and this and that and buying a new car and repairs and it's just that little thing. So it's important to remind her, but we can get numb to it because we're not constantly coming in contact with it, and we could become numb to it. And it's important sometimes to recognize, no, this is dangerous. Let's be careful here. This is dangerous. And the same thing is true when we're talking about standing in front of Hashem. Standing in front of the King of Kings who created the world, who's pumping each one of our hearts right now, who's responsible for everything going on in the universe at any time. That's very big. Standing in front of that Hashem is huge. Now, there's other reasons why it's a little bit difficult to do that. We'll talk about that soon. But I think it's important for us to hear what the Mesilas Yesharim is saying and not to just put it into like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Because that is the point that he makes in his Akdama, that sometimes you hear, the mashal I give, I wrote this in the introduction to a book that I'm writing very, 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 very slowly. But I got these glasses when I was in my my 40s, my late 40s. And but I never wore glasses at all. If you look at most pictures of me that you'll see without glasses, I never wore glasses. I always had perfect vision. As I got a little older, and my entire life is reading, so my vision started to fail a little bit. I can't get used to them. I have a very hard time, both comfort-wise and vision-wise. When I'm wearing my glasses, I see my glasses when I'm looking at you. I know I should be wearing lenses, but that I was for sure too old to start getting used to that. Okay? The problem is that when people who are used to wearing glasses, they don't see their glasses when they look at you. The brain is an amazing keli. You know that the brain filters out the things that are always there, that like there's nothing to see. It filters it out, and you just see what's beyond it. The brain has the ability to do that. So your brain is doing that with what you're hearing also. You're being assaulted right now with dozens of sounds. The fact that you're following my voice is because your brain has this unbelievable power to filter out what's not necessary and to focus in on what is necessary. It's an incredible, incredible thing. Our cell phones are developing the technology to do what our brain does automatically when they record or when they listen to a conversation. They've spent millions of dollars trying to develop into our technology what's automatic for us, that our brains just filter it out. So what ends up happening is that when you hear something your whole life, you filter it out. That's why I tell parents when they're teaching their children to dress properly, especially their girls, if a girl, let's say, is walking around not appropriately dressed. I'm talking about a 3-year-old. So a lot of parents rush to say you should dress tznius. I have nothing against tznius. I think it's stupid to use those words when you really mean be human. Really, we're not raising cats, we're raising children. Cats walk around without clothing, children walk around with clothing. When we raise our children, just like we train them to blow their nose and to wash their hair and to cut their nails, we train them to wear clothing. It's part of being a human being, right? If we weren't Jewish or there was no concept of tznius in halacha, would we not teach our children to wear clothing? Of course we would. My fear is that if we tell a 3-year-old tznius, 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 and then a 4-year-old tznius, 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 and then this girl turns 11, 12 years old, and she's in school and her teacher says, today we're going to talk about the unbelievable topic of tznius. This kid is like, seriously? It's just numb. And that's why I like that the word tznius should come out later on in a child's life in the right way, where the child could be open to, oh, that's interesting. That's a new concept. What is that concept? Oh, that's the concept of your dignity and so on and so forth. Oh, that's really speaking to me. Instead of, oh, that's how my mother annoyed me for 10 years. And I think with this also we have to be so careful. We're reading a sentence here that should shake us. When we daven or we do a mitzvah, we're doing so in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whew, that's pretty incredible. Right now, we're sitting in front of Hashem. Hashem is here. It says that when a tzibur learns together, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting there. Anything you want to say to him? Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting here. To recognize that, to be nispoiled from that, is already very important. This is what the Tana warns. When you're davening, da lifnei mi ata mispalel. Know in front of whom you're davening. It's not so simple. It's hard. It's exhausting a little bit, no? It can be exhausting to do that. That's really the exhaustion of davening. It's much easier to not think about that I'm davening in front of Hashem. If I don't think about that, I don't have to daven the same way. I don't have to be as engaged. When I recognize I'm in front of Hashem, it places certain demands on me, not because the Shulchan Aruch says so, but because just the knowledge demands a certain response from me. How I dress, how I act, what I do, what I think about. All these things become very important. It's interesting. It's become a trend in the world for guys to sip coffee through davening. You notice that? when we were kids, there was no such a thing. Nobody ever saw it. No one ever thought of such a thing. It was like, if someone did that, it would be like the equivalent of like a guy coming in the middle of Birchas Kriyash by eating sushi. Can you imagine what that would look like? Imagine a guy came, he sat in the front, everyone's wearing their tefillin, their talis, this guy takes out a thing of sushi, pulls out his chopsticks, starts eating sushi. Everyone would be like, is everything all right? When I was a kid, if someone was drinking coffee during davening, that's what it would look like. Today, it became a normal sight to see, and there are discussions among the Rabbanim today. Is it mutter? Forget about is it right? Is it new? Is it mutter? And there's all these conversations. Is it a hefsek? What are the dinim? I've worked on it a little bit, and it could be that it is a hefsek. It's not advisable. Anyway, I found this sefer a few weeks ago that a chevra of guys went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and they said to him that it's starting. Apparently, it's an issue in Bnei Brak as well. It's starting to become a thing that people are sipping coffee through davening. When we tell people that we don't think that's appropriate, they say, "Where does it say it?" Now, where does it say it? By the way, is itself sometimes a lack of sensitivity. Someone once asked Rav Hutner a question like that, like, "Where does it say something that the yeshiva was makbid on?" And Rav Hutner responded, "Where does it say that you can't hold a cat by its tail in the middle of Shemini Esrei?" It doesn't say it. So you think you could hold a cat by its tail in the middle of Shemini Esrei? Like some things, you don't have to, like, where does it say it? Like, use your brains. Be normal. Like, obviously it's not what Hashem wants. But anyway, they told Reb Chaim Kanievsky that people are saying, like, where does it say it? So Reb Chaim, it's like, I think they started off saying, like, does it say it? Is it an halacha? And Reb Chaim was like, yes. It says it. You know, he's going weiter. You can imagine Reb Chaim, like, where does it say it? So he goes, Da lifnei mi ata oimed. Know in front of whom you are standing. And he went back to his learning. Like, that's really something. It really does make it a little harder. In fact, I saw this amazing thing. They responded to Reb Chaim. Really? It doesn't say nobody will say that you're not allowed to drink while you're learning Torah. Right? You have a drink over here? You take drinks while you're learning? Yeah. I know of big tzaddikim, big Talmidei Chachamim that would sip tea or coffee while they're learning. So what's the difference between if you're davening and you're learning? When you're davening, it's a very good question, no? When you're davening, Reb Chaim is saying, and in the Poskim it's mashma, no, don't be eating or drinking while you're davening. When you're learning, okay, maybe some people don't like it in the Beis Medrash, When I first came here, about a year or two later, I don't remember, we might do this we might do this next Thursday. We made a mishmar in the back of the Beis Medrash, which I might do next week again. Last year. And there was pushback, like the old timers here were like, we never eat in the Beis Medrash, we don't do that, we don't eat in the Beis Medrash. And I discussed it with the Rosh Hashiva, and he was like, yeah, I don't know, it's not a problem, you're allowed to. Beis HaKnesses is different than a Beis Medrash, you're allowed to. In fact, when we made a late mishmar earlier in the year, and we had a kumzitz in the middle of the night, which again, I want to do that in a few weeks as well. We served sushi in the front of the Beis Medrash. So, but no, there's no such a thing. So, but could you imagine if we serve sushi by davening? Like, that would be a problem. So Reb Chaim answered, and if you think about it, it's a very interesting thing. He says, when you're davening in front of Hashem. And when you're learning with Hashem. It really is a little bit of a yira and ava thing. Davening is an eved standing in front of his master and saying, Hashem, please take care of me, please help me, please save Klal Yisrael. We're being mischanein, so there's a certain sense of awe. We try to wear something, respectful when we're davening. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz would wear his frock and his hat when he davened, but when he learned, he would roll up his pant legs because it was very hot in Yerushalayim. What's the difference? No, because when you're learning, it's more like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting and learning with you. It's a different dimension of the relationship, even though it is in front of Hashem. So it's interesting that even within Yira and within Ava, a person has to learn the sensitivity and the subtleties to how the relationship works. You know what I'm saying? It's different when you visit a Rebbe in his house and when you meet him in the Beis Medrash. It's different when it's an official thing or when it's a less official thing, right? You meet people, sometimes the same person under different circumstances, and the mode of acting with them is different depending on the circumstances. So that's just a fascinating thing, that Yiras HaRaimemus expresses itself in different ways. It does say there were tzaddikim that would not like when people would learn, there was this, okay, as we get older we grow out of this, but it's certainly like a high school pose, like the slump down in the chair, that learning pose. So there are a lot of Talmidei Chachamim that have a very hard time with that, because you're not recognizing that Hashem is by the table. There are tzaddikim who are makbid that they don't bring the sefer to themselves, but they lean forward over the sefer. These are not halachas, and these should not make you feel controlled or intense. Adarabah, you should focus on the fact that Hashem is there. You'll see all of that stuff will come by itself. It's a mistake that people focus on all these external things, very often missing the point. No, that's not the derech. The right derech is focus on the fact you're learning with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe you're sipping a coffee, but you're not putting your feet up on the table. You still have that sense. Imagine you were learning with a Rosh Hashiva, or you were going in to ask a Rosh Hashiva a question. There's a difference. You're learning with the Rosh Hashiva, you're sitting down, it's a different atmosphere. But in neither case are you coming in, without a shirt. You know what I mean? Neither case are you doing that. And this is true in a lot of areas in halacha where it's kedai to get a handle on the neshama of what's happening, and the details will fall into place. So people get caught up, oh, don't do that, don't bring your sefer to you. Push the sefer back, lean over the Gemara. I never tell my kids that. Never, ever, ever told my kids that. I want them to know when they learn, they're learning with Hashem. I am sure as they mature, they will lean over the Gemara because of it. You hear what I'm saying? It's not, a lot of times we give too many rules without the neshama of it, and then we lose both. Because nobody can hold on to so many rules. So, our goal, that's what we learn Musar in the morning, that we get a sense of the neshama of it, and then it follows by itself, Mo, I was thinking so I drink while I'm learning all the time. When I'm at home and I'm learning, I always have a drink with me. It's part of how I keep myself awake and hydrated. I always drink. I have these tall cups at home. I fill with water and stuff, and all kinds of other stuff, and I drink the whole day. And I'm thinking now, in the back of my mind, as I'm saying this, that my chizuk from learning this is not to not drink, but it's to make sure I'm making a proper bracha. If Hashem is learning with me, I should probably be a little more careful how I say thank you for the food. He's right here. Things like that. Okay, anyway. So that's V'huma shehizir atana ukishata mispalo da lifnei mi ata mispalo. Now, I'm just going to give you a hakdama to the next thing that we're going to talk about. The next thing we're going to talk about is lemaisa. How is this done? Because I could tell you that I went years having a difficult time with this, and even now that I have a drop more insight in it, it's still a constant struggle. It's not automatic to feel like you're in front of Hashem. You just learned the Mesilas Yesharim that you're in front of Hashem, and maybe that's affecting you now. In 10 minutes, it won't affect you anymore. It's not natural to feel like you're in front of Hashem. Do you know why? Because your body is telling you that He's not here. Because you can't see Him, you can't hear Him, you can't feel Him, you can't taste Him, and you can't smell Him. So your 5 senses are coming up with a blank. That means the only way that you know that Hashem is here is through the emunah of what our Messiah has taught us. And for that to settle down to be a complete reality to me at every moment is a challenge. It's important to recognize that. People think that if they get like this, I'm in front of Hashem, now I'm good. In front of it, no, He just slipped away. It slips away easily. It's something that, it's a lifelong avodah to place Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Samid. That's a big godless. I place Hashem in front of me, Samid, always. That's very, very difficult. What I'd like to do next time is I'd like to discuss a little bit perhaps how we could at least work on that, at least once in a while. What an accomplishment would it be if once in a while we could actually get, I want you to get this like shudder, like, I want you to feel it in your spine in front of Hashem. If you can achieve that, you know what that's like? Really standing in front of Hashem. Not because you were told he's here, not because you think he's here, not because he might be here, not because there's some concept of Hashem and I don't even know what that means, but I'm actually physically responding to the fact, like, in front of Hashem. And I would love to be able to discuss how we can at least take steps to be able to get there. My bracha and tefillah to all of us is that we should be able to learn how to grow to a point where we can live like that, like Gedolei Yisrael lived. You know what a life that is? You know what it means when you live with Hashem? It means you're never lonely. You're never alone. You never feel like it's just me. You're always with that accompaniment, and not just stam accompaniment. You're accompanied by the most powerful, I don't want to say being, you're accompanied by the most powerful Hashem. That's not bad. That's a good deal. That's worth working hard towards. We all have it, but to recognize that we have it would be a worthwhile venture. In about 5 to 10 minutes, I am going to be learning with Rabbi